What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of the Fierce Framework, where we talk about becoming fierce through taking messy action, baby steps, and cultivating confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm an ADHD kid with a dream to see more women start breaking out of the box society tells us we're supposed to fit into and start living life on our own terms. This podcast is designed to share inspiration and to give you practical steps to empower you to live your days aligned with your values and headed towards your dreams. I believe the world benefits when you show up as your full self and you live lit up. So we talk about how to do that here. I'm so excited today to introduce my first guest on this podcast, my friend Megs Crawford. She's an organizer with ADHD, and as a professional organizer with ADHD, Megs understands the unique challenges and the untapped brilliance of the ADHD brain. She's super passionate about helping others with ADHD cultivate organized spaces that foster peace and ignite creativity. Beyond physical and digital organization, she's also an ADHD coach, and she does digital decluttering sessions via Zoom for clients with a focus on the power of self-belief. I love that. It's a core principle for thriving with ADHD, and Megs calls it one of her superpowers, the way that she's able to help people believe in themselves. She's also a speaker and loves sharing her message of how ADHD can be a superpower when it's understood and embraced. When she's not organizing, you can find her with her two daughters, her beloved pets, and her supportive husband. She's just a ball of joy. She's so passionate, and you can just see how much she cares about people and how intensely she believes in people. So I'm really excited to share this interview with you. We got a little bit carried away because I could talk to her forever. And so this is a two-parter. So this is the first of the two-part interview with Megs Crawford. You're gonna love it. Hey, Megs, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
You've always been so easy to talk to, and you were the first podcast interview I did, so I'm really excited to have this like come full circle and have you on.
I know this is awesome. I've seen you doing it's fun because I've seen you doing the podcast and I've seen the videos and now I'm a part of it. This is brilliant.
Here you are. I love it. So tell me a little bit about yourself, like just to kind of get a feel for who you are. Like what are some important things for someone new to know about you?
Hmm. Well, my name is Megs and I prefer Megs. Originally named Megan, so that's important. I'm married to an amazing guy. I've known him now for 10 years. We have two little girls, 5 and 7, dogs, cat, and we live in Colorado. We love it here. Other than that, I am a business owner, entrepreneur, and I originally worked my way up through the corporate world for quite some time and decided to become a business owner after almost 9 years as a leader in the corporate world. And my business is Mindful Moves Organizing with Megs. So I do in-person organizing, I do digital decluttering sessions, and I also do coaching. While at the same time, I have a podcast called the Mindful Megs Podcast, Organizing an ADHD Brain. And so I have ADHD. I love talking about it. I think it's such a cool thing, the way that our brains work. And there's so many different aspects of learning about your brain that helps you conquer the world in just a different way than the world expects you to. So that's
Mm.
important to know about me because if there's ever a time that you put yourself down or you put yourself in a position where you're not believing in yourself, I will help you believe in yourself again. That
That's so
is
true.
possibly one of my superpowers. And I just absolutely love when people know how beautiful they are.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like you do such a good job of that. You're always encouraging and uplifting people and catching people when they start talking negatively about themselves. So I love that. How did you transition from the corporate world to being a business owner? Can you tell us like a little bit of what that journey looked like?
One of the best things I've ever done for myself is hire a career coach. And I felt so freaking lost in the corporate world. And I had done so many things to try to get myself to the position where I felt like I was doing all the right things. So I had bariatric surgery where I lost 120 pounds. And I was like, all right, finally, I'm skinny. So now what can I do? Okay,
Yeah.
well, that didn't fix things. Then I quit drinking and I thought for sure, okay, well, this will fix everything. Okay, nope, not that. And now I'm stuck in this corporate environment that I just really didn't know. I didn't know what my goals were anymore. I thought I could
Mm,
work up to executive leadership, but I knew that there was a lot of myself that I would lose in that process. And there's a lot of myself that I didn't want to lose in that process. So I hired a career coach because in it's okay to ask for help. There's so many aspects of life where we think we need to do it ourselves, or we could watch a YouTube video to get inspired. But the truth is when we have someone guiding our way through difficult times in our lives, we get these epiphanies and these life lessons that just help us understand that there's another way of being. So I started working with this career coach in May of 2023. I left my corporate job in July of 2023 and I started my own business last September.
yay.
And yeah, it was cool too because throughout the process, my original focus completely changed in the 90 days that I was working with her. I originally wanted to leave and find a job that paid me more in a corporate environment
Yeah.
with what I knew. And in the end, I started my own business and here I am. And it was through, just different perspectives and understanding the capabilities that I had that got me to move into this entrepreneurship journey that I just never thought was possible for me.
Yeah. I love that so much. That I feel like there's so much to kind of dig into there. You mentioned that you were doing like all the right things. So what kind of like changed or made you feel like even though you were doing all the right things, this isn't where you wanted to be? You mentioned like losing parts of yourself.
Oh, yeah. So I think for much of my life, I thought I had to be a certain version of myself for the
Mm,
world to accept me. Part of that was losing weight. Part
yeah.
of that was not drinking. Now, that was a version of me that I had to accept for myself. That's a whole nother story. I thought I had to have the best job and then to get hired and promoted. And I started to get my master's degree. I'm actually halfway through my master's degree in project management. I got
Oh,
certifications. I was trying to do all of the right things. I'm doing
mm,
quotations here, based on the world's perspective on what the right things should be
yeah.
until I finally decided that I was done living life for anyone else but myself and my family, of course.
Yeah.
And I looked at my two girls and I thought to myself, if I'm not doing things that I love, how can I show them that they can do whatever the heck they want to do in life and love
Mm,
the life that they're living?
yeah.
And I wanted to lead from example in a way that I've never really seen in my life someone living
Right.
their dreams.
Yeah.
And so that was it's not as if I made that decision one day and was like, now I live the life of my dreams, right? No, there's a lot
Right.
that goes into that. And I was just done living life on someone else's terms, as I had said. And
Mm,
so now I live my life for my family, for my husband, for my girls. It's a journey still every day because although I've made that decision, I also was brought up in this corporate environment where that was my whole life and it was my
yeah.
identity. And so it hasn't even been a year since I've left and I'm working through leaving that identity in the past
Mm,
and just being myself. And that's part of the reason why when you asked me to introduce myself in the beginning, I didn't talk about my business
yeah.
because before I would have been like, well, I'm a leader and I lead a team and this is what I do. Now, I'm a mom, but I also sing and I do this and I do that and I organize and I have ADHD and it's amazing. So there's a lot that I'm experiencing as I'm discovering more of who I really am inside instead of what I do.
I love that so much. And I think that's so important. I think a lot of frustration that we deal with is the fact that we're so encouraged by society to like leave a lot of our humanity. and like strive to be robotic. And I think it filters into kind of a lot of different areas of our life, which is part of why like I started my podcast and my business, because it's just not working for us, right? Um, so you mentioned like your girls being a huge inspiration to kind of move away from that and move into focusing on what's important to you, your family, and your life together. Were your girls the main factor? Were there other factors?
They were not the main factor. And the reason is because with anything in life, I think it's important to be selfish with the decisions that you make, because no matter what I decide to do, it has to matter to me and my happiness. Because when I focus on myself and my own happiness and what I'm doing, then I get to show up in the world as the best version of myself, which means guess who else gets to benefit? My girls and my husband and my dogs and my cat. So like
Yeah,
everyone gets to
of course.
benefit from me being selfish. And coming back to me quitting drinking, I didn't do that for anyone else but myself. And that is why to this day, I still don't drink, because it is a me thing.
Yeah.
And other people now benefit from it. And I even noticed when I was in the rehab world, because I went to rehab for 28 days and I met these people, so many people were doing it for other people. They were
Hmm.
showing up in this world where they weren't ready to do the work on themselves because they thought they needed to show up for other people first.
Hmm.
And that's where this has helped me so much when I think about how I want to grow my business and how I want to travel the world and how I want to wake up and look at the wake up and look at the stars, look at the stars at night before I go to bed. I do that for me, and then in turn I get to show up for my girls in the best way possible.
I love that so much. And I think that's so important. And it's so different from what we're taught oftentimes, and like from what is reinforced and validated in us. And yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things that just attracts me to you is like you are yourself, like you're alive, you're lit up. And I think a lot of that, like speaking from somebody, the outside, like I think a lot of that comes from, yeah, that sense of fulfillment that like you're making sure you have by filling your cup and literally like being fulfilled.
1,000,000%. And part of, one thing that I know we've had conversations on too is setting boundaries.
Mm,
And I know now, for example, showing up for this podcast, I'm doing this because I truly want to. I want to be here and I want to have this conversation with you. I'm not doing it because I feel obligated to, or
mm,
because I feel pressure to, or I think I should do it. I'm doing it because this is genuinely something that I want to do in my life to fill up my
yeah,
cup. And I say boundaries because when something comes up in my life that I no longer want in my life, I don't have to have it. Even as far as I had a conversation with someone the other day about coworkers, and she's
mm,
having a very hard time with her coworkers, like who is her leader and who she's working
oof,
with. And it can often present such a toxic environment. And she's getting a steady paycheck to go there and show up and be there anyway.
mm,
And whereas I decide who I surround myself with, including and down to my incredible clients. I get to work with
yeah,
these incredible people and they get to work with me, and it's a mutual agreement and it's a mutual thing that we decide upon. It's not just something that we are forced into because we have to, because we're expecting something from it.
yeah,
And I was so grateful to hear that from her the other day. Now I'm also encouraging her to, branch out. At the same time, I'm so grateful to be able to make those decisions and have boundaries around my own life so that I can continue to show up.
yeah, absolutely. That's huge. Do you feel like it was easy to transition into that, to start like focusing on yourself and putting boundaries in place and letting go of the shoulds and the outside pressure of like what you're supposed to be doing? Or was it like a more of a difficult transition? Like, what did that feel like for you?
Not easy. Uh,
Yeah.
I think when you practice something over and over and over and over and over again, that's what you know. And that's what
Hmm.
becomes your innate sense of self words.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I was in the corporate world, I ate, slept, and drank that mission, that vision, my
Hmm.
team, being a leader. That's all I wanted to do or talk about. And I had to do a lot of research and understanding and thinking about what my future self really was in order for me
Hmm.
to start to change my ideology around life and my sense of self worth. So, no, it was not easy. It wasn't as if I decided I need to set boundaries and I need to understand who I am and I just need to be an all around better person one day. Maybe it did happen in one day. And it has been through a series of incredible baby steps to get to where I am today. And guess what? I'm still taking baby steps. I don't think that there's ever an end game that I'm going to end up at. It's not as if I'm going to get there one day and be like, here I am. I finally did it. Because when I make the decision to set boundaries, I have to actually create rules around what that means. And I have
Hmm.
to figure out what my priorities are. So if my
Hmm.
priorities are my kids and my business and my husband, then, if something else or someone else needs me, does that fall into those priorities? And I've got to create a sense of rules around that.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to think of another example of my sense of self. When I think about starting my own business and not necessarily having a steady income, what does
Hmm.
that look like? And how do I have to talk to myself in order to understand that, no, this is still the life that I'm grateful and thankful for on a regular basis. And there's still other things that I'm striving for. It's about the way that I talk to myself. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how to make this make sense. So I was one way. Now I am a different way, and I'm
Yeah.
working on that.
Yeah.
But it is so easy for me to go back to the way that old Megan was. And
Yeah.
that's because those neural pathways are still in my brain.
Yeah.
And it's comforting to go back to the things that I've known for so long. In fact,
Yeah.
I just went I was hanging out with some girlfriends the other day and they started talking about other people and other experiences in their lives. And I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, I could very much get caught up in this because this is very much who I used to be. And this is
Yeah.
absolutely something I could see myself doing again, except that that's not who I want to be anymore. So I
Hmm.
recognize now so much the things that I used to experience in life as something that's no longer serving me. And I get to move on from that. But yeah, it's so easy to fall back into the things that I've done for so long
Yeah.
because it's just easy. So that's where change is so hard, but it's now proven that you can actually create the new neural pathways in your brain to create new experiences. And okay, I have a really good example for you.
I love
The
it.
other day I wrote down the future version of myself. Like, who do I want to be? And I'm constantly practicing that because I want to know what's she like? I'm curious. And who do I want to be like? One thing I wrote down is, and where I want to live. I want to live in a place where I can go outside at night and look at the stars and just feel a sense of calm and a sense of peace. And I can't wait to
Hmm.
have that.
It's beautiful.
And then 2 nights ago, I felt really uneasy for some reason. And I got up out of bed and I felt the need to go outside and take a deep breath. So I did. And I looked up and there were so many stars in the night sky. I was just like, I don't think I ever really take the time to come out here and look at the stars. Whereas I'm creating this future version of myself that wants to look at the stars.
Yeah.
I'm just not actually practicing that in real time. And that's part
Ooh.
of living your best life is
Yes.
noticing what's around you and really
Yes.
living life in the moment. Because in the corporate world, I used to think, okay, once I got this job, I would be happy.
Right.
Except that that's not the case. When I sit
Correct.
down and I'm grateful for the things that I have now, even though I'm still working for other things, when I'm grateful and I take the time to notice the damn stars outside my own damn back door, then I get to live in the present in a way that I just never did before.
Yeah.
And that's where it's very easy for me to get caught up in the future or even the past instead of the here and now, because that's what I'm so used to doing.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's so beautiful. And you made so many good points of like, I don't even know where to start. Uh, I love how you talked about how we practice behaviors. And I think a lot of the time, like once we are older, like where we're at now, and we start to have like a realization that the survival mechanisms that we learned at one point are no longer serving us, I think it's so easy to expect ourselves to just make a switch. And now that like know better, do better. Yes, absolutely. Love my Angelou.
Mhm.
Um, and that's correct. Also, when you spent years and decades and your formative years and so much of your life, and I love that you said practicing, because I don't think we think of it as practicing because like we were just surviving, right? We are just living or doing whatever. But when you're talking about like brain chemistry and neural pathways, like we were practicing. So all those like defense mechanisms, survival techniques, like we practice those over and over and over. So now when you learn better and you know better, you have to practice the new behaviors and habits over and over and over. And so I love that you said practice because I think realizing that and like giving ourselves grace and knowing that it's not going to be an overnight change is so important. Because, like you said, like it's so easy to fall back in the person we've been because you've been that person for most of your life. Like, of course, that's going to feel natural and comfortable to you. But when you're forging forward and you're like creating a new path, you're creating new pathways in your brain, you're creating new routines, like it's like creating a path in the wilderness, like you're hacking things out of the way and and it's a trail, not this huge like beaten down path that you've been over a million times. um yeah, I just love the way that you phrased that, and it just reminded me like how important it is to give ourselves grace. And I think we have such a hard time with that because we don't always respect like how much time it takes for something to go from head knowledge to an actual habit or heart knowledge, or like something that really feels true and is more like second nature to us.
I'm obsessed with the fact that you talked about it like hacking down this overgrown world that you haven't really ever experienced before. And I it reminds me of when someone told me this months ago now, but how could you ever expect to be a millionaire if you don't know what being a millionaire is like? In the sense of
Yeah.
what are their perspectives on the world? What is the
Right.
idea behind money and how you make it and what you do with it? Because the perspective of money from a millionaire's perspective is going to be so much more different than someone who has $10 in their bank account and doesn't know how to keep more in it.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating because you have to adopt a new perspective and you've got to create that pathway, hacking it down and understanding and learning and growing through that. And I also loved when you said head knowledge to heart knowledge because that spoke to me too.
I'm so glad. This is so great. I'm so happy you're here.
Me
um
too. This is awesome.
I also loved your story of going outside and looking at the stars like that. It was so good because I think we do that so often. And I've realized like I love to travel, right? So I've realized like I will go on a trip, thousands of miles away, whatever, and chill a lot of the time. Like I'm not an adventure vacationer. Like I don't go do all the things. I really like to chill. I love beaches, so I don't have that here. But like I will go and be in nature and read, and even, which is so funny because I'm like so introverted and I keep thinking that I really don't like people, but I'll like make new friends, make new acquaintances, and like chit chat with strangers. And I'm like, who am I? And so like real like kind of reflecting on that, I've asked myself the question like, how can I incorporate the things I love about vacation so much like into my daily life? Are there things that I can do to like enrich my routines and like get more out of my day-to-day life instead of like suffering through my daily life and then escaping, whenever I have PTO. Um and yeah, it's
Okay,
just so powerful what you said of like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, like we have to take that time and notice where we're at.
it's seriously such a good point that you make because just like that star story, I'm thinking that as soon as I get to a certain point, I'm going to start walking outside to look at the stars because I've gotten to the point where I feel like I can. Why
Right.
haven't I been doing this the whole time? And
Yes.
really, it took reflecting on that because I wanted to know what I wanted to do. And then I looked up at the stars and I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. They've been here
Oh
the
my
whole
God.
damn
Yeah. Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And the part of me knows that I didn't go out there because my daughter had this thing she had to do for school one time, and we started looking at the stars at around 8 p.m. at night
Okay.
before she
Yeah.
went to bed. And this was over winter, so it was dark at that point in time, but we could only see 5 or 6 stars. So because of that one experience 2, 3 times over the course of a week, I had decided that we can't see the stars from our house. Somehow in my brain, I told myself that. So I
Yeah.
stopped going outside to look. But it just, you got me thinking about how there's so many other aspects of just enjoying life that we're not doing unless we give ourselves permission to on vacation. But why can't we be doing that on a regular basis? I mean, hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and not a lesson about persistence with the star story. I was like, what? She said I couldn't see them one night, so I didn't even try anymore. And then
Right?
randomly, I was like, oh my God, wow.
It's
Like,
just, it's such a beautiful analogy for life, not analogy, but yeah, it's just such a good comparison about what we do on a regular basis. Sometimes we have this one experience
yes,
and we're like, well, I guess that's the way life is, but
yes,
no, do it again
yes.
and
Oh
again
my
and again and
gosh.
again and make it your own and enjoy it and see it in a different, I don't know, maybe I saw the stars with a new set of eyes the other night.
Right? Like, just because you can't see the stars one night doesn't mean you should stop looking for them.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna
That
make it
was
a quote.
funny.
We need it on
Yep.
t-shirts. Something. It's gonna
I'll
happen.
buy that t-shirt. Yeah.
I love it so much. Um, okay, yeah, I just distracted myself about how excited I was about it. Uh, okay, let me see if I can get my life back on track here. What are some of the things that helped you? I love that you talked about setting boundaries. You talked about like having a vision for your future. What are some other things that help you like transition from kind of that like corporate mentality of like what you were trained to following your North Star, like listening to your heart, like however you want to phrase it? Like what helped you? What are some tools that
My
helped you
God,
with that?
following my North Star. That's brilliant.
I mean, that's what, who, I can't remember who wrote that book, and I don't want to quote her name wrong. But yeah, it's following your own North Star. There's a whole book, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, my career coach gifted me with the book Infinite Possibilities, and then she taught this course, and it's a book on manifestation and, thinking about your future self and really understand where you could be.
Mhm.
The book is super hippy dippy and all of the stuff. I'm certified to teach the course. I've taught you the course because I've made you take
Correct.
the course.
Correct.
And I I don't know that I'll teach the course again, but I use a lot of the ideologies and methodologies in my own thinking on a regular basis. One exercise she had me do was sit down and write a letter to someone who was an acquaintance so that I could
Mhm.
be very detailed about where I was a year from now. I'd say, okay, I wrote a letter to my aunt and uncle. I said, here's where I am. I'm on the beach. I'm with my dogs and my husband and my kids, and they're playing in the sand, right? So I wrote this whole idea of where I would be in a year,
Mhm.
which helped me understand that I didn't necessarily want to work for anyone else. Because my boss
Mhm.
in that journal that I had written to an acquaintance was very kind-hearted, very understanding, gave me a ton of PTO. And I was like, oh, I could be that boss. I could be
Uh,
that boss. It could
she said
be
I could do
me.
that. I can do that. I'd be such a good
So,
boss.
yes. From there, I took this thing I started incorporating into the corporate world. I talked a ton about self exploration and understanding where you wanted to go in life. I loved talking to people about what their next steps were. And part of it
Yeah.
was, okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You don't have to know exactly what you're doing, but tell me aspects about it. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to be promoted. Okay, what are some big gigantic things you need to do within that time frame? Okay, like get a degree, maybe network, maybe do this or that. Okay, what is one thing you can do today?
That's
And I
good.
broke it down. So
Yeah.
then, as I started to think about my own life and my own journey, I started to break it down like that. Okay, if I want to own a house on a beach, what do I have to do to get there? And like, what are the big things? What's
Mhm.
one thing I can do today? But part of the infinite possibilities course is challenging the emotions that come along with a lot of the
Mm.
aspects of life that we handle.
Mhm.
And some of the emotions that I dealt with right after leaving the corporate world was betrayal and heartbreak a little
Oh
bit
wow. Yeah.
because I equate leaving the corporate world as going through a bad breakup
I
because
mean,
here I am. I have dedicated my life to this company and this mission and what they believe in. I know it's ridiculous and
no,
so
it's like
real at the
it's so
same time.
true. It's like
So true.
I got it on a surface level, and then it was like sinking in. I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh
Yeah.
my god.
I thought me and this company would be together forever.
And they're temporary.
And then I realized that I had made a big decision to leave it behind forever. And I still have a ton of friends that work there or don't work there. But I
Yeah.
found that whenever we would get together, I would cling to some of the stories and I would get into it and we'd start talking about all of the things that happened. But I would
Yeah.
leave those experiences thinking, ugh, I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
that. I want to leave that company in the past so that I can move
Yeah.
forward. So I
Yeah.
had to deal with those emotions. And then I had to deal with some of the emotions that I've grown up feeling
Mhm.
and understanding, what it looks like to start your own business and the
Yeah.
like trusting myself and trusting that I actually can do this. So
Yeah.
but coming back to infinite possibilities, part of it is understanding like my reactions and my emotions in the reactions
Mm.
that I have and saying, okay, why am I reacting that way? And really questioning it. And then coming down to the belief that I have. So, for
Yeah.
example, I have to make a certain amount of money in order to be successful. That was a belief I had for a very long time. And through the process of understanding my reactions and understanding what my beliefs are, I can then start to understand that, okay, I don't have to make a certain amount of money to be successful. In fact, I am successful in this moment because I have two beautiful girls and a husband who I love to share my life with, and I get to
Yeah.
look at the stars at night. So
We found them.
they're there, they're literally there. And it's just fascinating understanding that again, those neural pathways, right? I have grown up knowing the world a certain way because
Mhm.
of the adults that I've been surrounded by. But because we're in this world now that we're inundated with so much information, we now get to choose a lot of the things that we can fill our cup with. And I now
Mhm.
understand that I don't have to see the world as I once did. I get to decide how I see the world based on the way that I want to live my life. And so
Yeah.
that helped me so much. Now, I have not replaced my income that I had once in the corporate world. And one day I'll surpass that income because
Mhm.
my mission is not the income. My mission is to help people believe in themselves and to change the world in a way that I can with my voice. And
Yes.
it could be for 5 people, it could be for 500 people. I don't yet know, but you better believe it's in my future version of myself. So that is a little bit about how I've changed.
I think that's so huge. I love that. It's so important to like be able to take a step back and kind of observe yourself almost like um I forget where the analogy came from, but it was like think of your emotions as the storm and you're looking at the storm instead of being inside it, and that's like game changer. And I think that depending on your situation, and I think we don't always give enough credit to like how our emotions and feelings and reactions are affecting the things around us. Like you can be very tunnel visioned or have a very like limited perspective, but since it's all you think you're being objective or you think you're seeing the whole picture, and it's like we're not always, and then you're not always even aware of it because you're so like in your own head or in your own feelings. And so I think that's so powerful, and I love that you brought that up.
Absolutely. I I work on my emotional regulation now with my children as well. And
That's huge.
it's huge because I don't want to be an angry mom.
Yeah.
And I remember a lot of yelling when I grew up. And mm, I think this is really relevant to our conversation and growth and kind of getting out of what we how we grew up, right? I grew
Mhm.
up only knowing one way of parenting, and that was
Right.
threats and yelling
Yeah.
and and hiding your feelings for a lot of the things that you went through. And so now when I when I talk to my children, I want to talk to them in a way that is respectful. I even remember when I was in high school, I remember saying, and I said this over and over and over again, was that Megan, don't forget what this is like. I don't want you to forget because one day when you're a mom and you're an
Mm,
adult, I want you to remember how it feels to be a kid so that you can relate to these kids. And
yes.
I'll never forget saying that because it was so important to me then and it's still important to me now. So, do I yell at my kids? Yes. Am I proud of it? Not really.
Right.
And I now recognize where those emotions are coming from. And it's because I have watched a ton of videos on parenting because I don't want to yell at my kids. And I
Mhm.
also know that I'm working on it because I didn't ever know another way. I have to
Yeah.
teach myself how to parent in a way that's not yelling.
Yeah.
And so I also recognize the fact that it takes time and I have to stop myself in those emotions. And I have done so much work on it that if I need help, I can get tapped out by my husband and go into the other
Love
room and
that.
take
Yeah.
some deep breaths.
So
And if he
nice.
needs the same kind of help, I can do that for him. And we work on that together. I also will apologize for my children. Oh my gosh, for my children. I don't apologize for them. They're pretty amazing, so they don't need any apologies. But when I do act out in irrationally, I will go to them
Mhm.
and I always make sure that they know that if I'm angry, it's not okay for me to take it out on you. And if you
Yeah.
feel that way, it's important for us to have a conversation about it. And I am sorry if I made you feel like you were the cause of that. Because no matter what, I continuously remind them that it's okay to be angry. It's not
Yeah.
okay to take it out on other people because anger
Yes.
is a normal human emotion.
Yes, it is.
And I also remind them all the time, like, I love you when you're angry, and I love you when you're sad, and I love
Oh
you when
my
you're
God.
happy because all of those emotions make you who you are, which is human. And
Yeah.
so feel them and just remember that when you take them out on other people, you might make them feel some things too. Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
so we talk about that a lot. And I recognize, and I'm okay talking about it now because although I'm not perfect, I'm doing the work and I'm
Yes.
changing myself to get to the point that even if I've traumatized them already, which is a very real scenario that could
Mhm.
happen,
Yeah.
they also know they also know how hard I'm working. I'm working so
Right.
hard to be the best version of myself for them so that like when they're in high school, we can have the relationship that I've always wanted with my own children. And that's
Yes.
one of trust and one of respect and one of, understanding. Because I talked to
Yeah.
someone today and she said, this beautiful thing. She's like, I'm raising adults. They're gonna be adults one day. And I want to show them what it's like to be able to apologize, to be able to show
Yeah.
up in this world and say I'm just a human and I have no idea how to parent a 7-year old because I've never done it before. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, so emotional regulation. So interesting.
So he, I'm like, don't let the ADHD like take this too far. But
Woo!
yeah, that's such a huge part of ADHD that I didn't realize. Um, yeah, because I've always had big emotions, had a hard time handling them. I'm a huge crier, and realizing that was like part of ADHD was so validating. But I don't want to like go down that
Yes.
rabbit trail too far.
Oh my, we could do a whole nother episode
We
on
could.
that. I
I mean, we
could
could.
talk
We
about it all
could.
day.
I also love the validation of like, because I think especially for girls and women, being validated in our anger, um, there's so much to be angry about, and frankly, I don't think enough of us are angry enough. Like, just in general. Um, but I think so many of us were taught, whether I forget the terminology for it, but whether like on a one-to-one basis where you're told like it's not okay to be angry, or from observing where you see, oh, they're rejected when they're angry, or they're being told not to be angry, or so the fact that you like validate them and you remind them that you love them when they're angry, just like, I think you healed a part of my heart. I think that's so important. And then also I love how you're talking about trying hard, and they see you trying, and I honestly, it's like life, right? Like nobody gets out of life alive. I don't see how anybody gets out of childhood untraumatized, so maybe that's just my negativity speaking.
Right.
It's like there's gonna be trauma, right? Like how could you not? But the fact that like you are teaching so much by doing and showing like how you're growing and how you're learning and how you're walking through, and being like open and transparent about that, because I think that's a lot of the stuff that like we keep behind the scenes. And then you have a whole generation of millennials who are adults and are like, we don't know how to adult because we never saw people doing the things that like make the results, right? It was all like behind the curtain or like behind whatever it was. And so I love like this example where you are showing your children how to do the work, and I just see like so many benefits, because if they struggle too, it's not gonna be like, oh my god, mom made it look so easy and like there must be something wrong with me, because you didn't. You're being transparent about it and you're showing that it's difficult. And so now they can see like there's nothing wrong with trying. Like trying is important. You try and fail and try again when something matters to you. Like you're just teaching these girls so much, and it makes my heart so happy.
You. It is hard. Because I mean, to react is easy. To react is so easy,
Oh, I'm
and to
so good at
yell
that.
is so easy. I always heard women describe their moms growing up. I've heard it a lot, maybe not always, because I have some friends with some moms, let me tell you. But I I heard women describe their moms as like, oh, my mom never yelled. She was so kind and gentle. I never saw
Yeah,
her cry or get angry. And I'm like,
it's terrifying.
but originally when I heard that, I thought, that's the woman I want to be one day because I
Right.
heard the way that she was being described and I thought, well, maybe I can be like that too.
Yeah.
Is that what a good mom is, right? Because we learn from hearing and
Right, because
and
you never want to interrupt anyone else with your feelings.
right. And so, but and even like coming back to that selfishness that I was talking about before, and how we have to be reminded to put on our own damn air mask before we put it on for our kids.
Yeah.
It's not as if we don't want to breathe ourselves. We just are in this sense of we need to take care of others. And so
Yeah.
I've just always heard that and thought that I just needed to put myself out there until I broke. I thought that I just needed to take everything from me and give it to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it even looks that way, like with pregnant women after they give birth, like their hair falls out and like they get
Yeah.
paler and
Yes.
their boobs deflate.
Yeah.
And it's because like we give so much to creation of life that we forget about ourselves. But what's really cool about women and empowerment and understanding how we can thrive is that, again, when we take care of ourselves and we pour into ourselves first, everyone else gets to benefit in ways that we never could have imagined before. Which is
Yes.
why my daughter the other day told me, Mommy, you should go to yoga because you're a better mommy when you go to yoga. And you want to know why she said that? Not because
Because you
she
said
thinks
that.
it's because I said that. It's because I freaking said that, right? And so now she sees and she
Yeah.
equates me going to yoga with me taking care of myself so that I can come home and take care of her. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's a really cool thing because and it's seriously true. When I take time to breathe and get into my like body, mind and spirit, when something happens that triggers me, I am so much more fully regulated to handle it
Yeah.
because I have taken time for myself, which
Yeah.
means she's absolutely freaking right. I'm freaking right. I am a better mom when I take care of myself.
Yeah.
So it's good
Oh my
stuff.
gosh. That's
Mhm.
a game changer, dude. But like also because I feel like we write off feelings a lot, right? Men aren't allowed to have them. And then women, it's like she's crazy. So I think it's so valuable that your kids are learning at such a young age that it's not, oh, she's on her period or mom's mad again or like it's and she's like 7, right? So it's like she may not understand the entire like depth of what's happening, but she understands that because you're not getting what you need, you're not getting yoga, there's tension or there's less capacity or that like there is a reason for why we react and behave and have the emotions that we have. And I love the awareness that you're not just writing it off like, oh, mom's being whatever again. It's like, oh, she's already recognizing, which I'm 35, bro. And it's just like, I started recognizing that recently.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh,
Yes.
I'm not just like pissed for no reason. Like, I feel overwhelmed or this, that, and the other. And it's like, it just makes my heart so happy that she's learning these things at such a young age.
It's
To humanize
incredible.
you, right? And the women around her, but then also, of course, for herself to just be like, oh, if I'm not feeling like myself and I feel like I'm losing my shit, maybe it's because I need something. Like, instead of just having the shame of like, oh, well, you're not good enough or you're acting out or like, oh, maybe you're not getting something you need. Like,
Yeah,
what a concept. And she's already learning that.
absolutely. Yeah. It's, oh my gosh. It comes back to just addressing the emotions too in real time is
Yeah,
like, what is that emotion telling me? What is it telling me
exactly.
right now? Because I'm not reacting this way just to react, although that's what I've
Right.
known my whole life. But like, what am I really feeling? I do that. I think I talked about this in a podcast episode recently, but like even emotional cleaning, rage cleaning, if you will, or
Oh,
anger
yeah.
cleaning. And I
Great
I
episode,
did. I
guys.
took a
Check it out.
step back the other day and I was like, why am I doing this? And I'm like, oh, it's because like I haven't felt control over my home in like 2 weeks. And I've
Hmm.
got schoolwork all over here. I haven't taken the time, or no one's taken the time to clean up, right? So when I recognize that, but then also recognize that I didn't have systems in place to handle it,
Hmm.
it gave me a sense of peace. And I was like, oh, well, that makes more sense. Let me continue to
Yeah.
clean. I'll make myself feel better. And then we'll go from there. But it like took all the anger out of it because I made sense of why I was feeling that way. Gosh, being a human is fascinating.
Bro, so much. It's too much. I also loved your little like micro correction where you're like, because I didn't pick up the homework, someone didn't pick up the homework. I was like, yes, not your
Yeah.
job. You don't have to do
Mhm.
anything.
Exactly. It's all of us. Even my husband and I have we just have made so many more connections. He has ADHD too, and
That's
we
gotta be a
talked
party.
about the cleaning thing. I typically am the first one to clean, but as soon as I start to clean, he will go and do the cleaning too. And at first, I was kind of annoyed because I'm like, why is it always me? But then we talked about this the other day too, body doubling. How body doubling helps people with ADHD get motivated to do the things. And
Yeah.
so when he sees me doing something, he also wants to do things because I'm giving him that dopamine energy to get to where he needs to go. So it is not an excuse. No, but he does all the
No,
laundry and putting it away in our house. He is an incredible husband. So it's
I
good
love it.
stuff.
Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of the Fierce Framework podcast. I hope you fell in love with Megs as much as I did the first time we talked. I think she's truly amazing and she has a ton to offer. So make sure you go and follow her on social media. Definitely check out her podcast. She's awesome. Some of my favorite takeaways from this conversation with Megs were how she talked about the power of having a coach, someone who can like lead you through a transition and just offer like different insights and perspectives to help you understand that there's another way of being. I also loved how she talked about how everyone benefits from you being selfish. And when you're taking care of yourself, you're able to show up for the people you love just as a better human. And the last point I wanted to make is when we were talking about just because you don't see the stars the first time you go out to look doesn't mean you should stop looking for them. Basically, don't give up, keep pushing for your dreams, keep taking that action that's going to get you to where you want to go. And I'm so happy to announce we're not done with Megs yet. This is the first of a two-part interview with her. So stay tuned for next week where you can catch the rest of our interview. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.